Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we'll be learning how to sew this beautiful tier dress. Okay, it has this little flea that is for fancy. It has a bishop collar as well. So these are the measurements I'll be needing. Okay, so I'm going to mark the length of my skirt, and then I'm going to minus the ruffle. That is the longest, because it's a 3-tier skirt, more like a 3-step flea. So the longest flea is actually 18 inches. So I'm going to measure the full length of my gown and minus 18 inches from it. So I went ahead to mark the length that I have, and I added 1 inch for seam allowance. Okay, so measure your full length minus the length of your flea and then add 1 inch. So I went ahead to measure my bust line, measured my waist, and then I measured my hip. Okay, so I marked my shoulder line. I marked 7.5 is my shoulder, and I added ½ inch seam allowance. I did the same for the bust line, and then I connected it with a straight line. Okay, so next thing I'll do is to mark my measurements. I measured my bust circumference, divided it by 4, added 1 inch ease allowance. Okay, and I added 1.5 seam allowance. I added an ease allowance because my client said she doesn't want it to be so tight, but if you want yours to be fitted, you can just not add the ease allowance. Okay, so I also did the same thing for my waist. I measured the circumference of my waist, divided by 4, added 1 inch ease allowance, and then 1.5 inch seam allowance, and then I did the same thing for my hip. Okay, so I'm going to connect the points like so. So next thing I do is to mark my neck width and my neck depth. I marked a neck width of 3 inches and then a neck depth of 3 inches. Okay, this is for my front pattern, and then I connected it like this, and then I marked my shoulder slope of 1 inch, then made my shoulder slope. Then on this side of my hem, this gown has a little basque effect. So on this side, I'm going to go up by 2 inches. Then I'm going to connect it like so. So it will have that slight basque effect that it has in the picture on my thumbnail, on the thumbnail for this video. Okay, so this is how the basque effect is going to be. So I went ahead to cut my front pattern. Remember to add ½ inch seam allowance on your neck and on your shoulder for joining. So I've cut it, and I'm going to use this to cut the back. So I've folded another fabric. I placed the front on it, and I made space for my zipper allowance of 1.5 inch. Okay, as you can see at the edge. So for my neck depth, my back, I'm going to mark 1 inch for the neck depth of for my back. It's going to have a bishop collar, and the neck depth is not supposed to be low. So I mark the neck depth, and I'm going to cut my back piece, okay, using my front as a guide, as you can see. So I'm done cutting it, and I'm going to open my back piece, my zipper area on my back piece. So I'm done cutting, and then for the ruffle, okay, remember I said I want the length of my ruffle, that is the longest one, to be 18 inches. So here I just measured my hem, my the sorry, I divided by I measured my hip. Okay, my hip circumference is 41 for this client that I'm working with. Okay, so I multiplied the hip by 4 to get a long strip, okay, of fabric. So I'm going to mark the length of my ruffle, which is 18, and I added 2 inches seam allowance. So here I was marking 20 inches. Remember, to get how long the ruffle is going to be, I multiplied my hip circumference by 3, or you can multiply by 4 depending on how long you want it to be. So this is the long strip. Okay, so for the other ruffles, you know, it's a 3-tier skirt, so 3 steps. So the longest, which is what we've already got, is 18. Okay, so I'm going to divide it by 3 and I will have 6. Okay, so the each of the steps will be 6 inches away from each other. So the first, that is the shortest one, will be 6 inches, and I'll add 2 inches seam allowance to get 8. The second, you're going to multiply 6 by 2, okay, to get 12, and I added 2 inches seam allowance to get 14. Then we already had the 18 inches, which is the longest, plus 2 inches seam allowance, which is 20. So here is my first, the shortest, the second, which is the middle one, and the third, and they are 6 inches away from each other. That is, the second step is 6 inches away from the first, and the third is 6 inches away from the second. Okay, so I have the first, the second, and the third. I'm going to join them together. Okay, and then I'm going to interlock or weave it, because I want my flare to be on top. Okay, I'm going to join it on top. So I went ahead to cut the lining. I used lycra lining. Okay, this is by choice. Okay, you may decide not to use a lining, it's just fine. So I went ahead to join my fabric. I joined the sides, joined the zipper area, joined the shoulder. Okay, and then I ironed an interfacing on the zipper area. Okay, I like to do this for stretchy materials or light material, so that you won't have bulgy back or bulgy zip. So the next thing I want to do is to cut the little flare that will be on top of the basic sleeve. So I folded my fabric into two like this. Okay, I'm going to cut a half circle flare. So I measured the round of my armhole, which is 18, and I divided it by 3.14, which is the formula for getting a half flare. Okay, so I got my radius, and I want the length of the flare to be 5 inches, and I added 1 inch seam allowance. Okay, so I'm going to mark here I was marking the length of my flare plus 1 inch seam allowance. Okay, and then I'm going to get my radius. Okay, so I'm going to mark it from that point. So remember, the radius is your armhole circumference divided by 3.14. So I was marking my value there. Okay, so I joined it like so, and then I'm going to cut it off. So the reason why I used my round armhole is that this is going to have a little pleat. Okay, as you can see in the picture, it wasn't the flare did not start from the armhole. It started from half of the front armhole to half of the back. So I multiplied it. I used my round armhole, so that I'm going to get a little pleat. Okay, so I'm going to just curve this area. So I measured half inch on this end. Okay, that is for my joining allowance to join it to my basic sleeve. And I'm going to curve it like so. Then I'm going to cut it off. Okay, so here is what I'm going to have. Okay, that's what I'm going to have. So by the time I start from half of my armhole, split it a bit to half of the back, I'm going to have something like this. Okay. So I went ahead to join my ruffles, I joined my zipper, I also fixed my, this is what it looks like. I also fixed my sleeve, that is the flare, to my basic sleeve. Look at what it looks like. I fixed it from the half of the front to the half of the back, and I pleated it a little bit, just split it slightly like this. Okay, and then I also attached my elastic on my wrist area. I folded my hem and I attached the elastic 6 inches away from the hem like this. Okay, so this is what it looks like after I joined the sleeves. This is what the back looks like. That is the inside of the dress. Okay, here's what it looks like. It's looking so nice and neat. So what I want to do now is to attach my collar to my neckline. I'm just cutting off the zipper there. That's the end of the zip. So I'm going to measure my neckline from one end to the other end of my neckline, like so. Just measure your neckline round like this. So what I have after I measured is 15.5, exactly 15 and a half. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to cut the collar. So I have two pieces of fabric here, as you can see. Okay, so I'm going to fold it like this. I folded it like this, and remember I got 15.5 from my neckline, so I'm going to divide that 15.5 by 2, and then I'm going to mark my value. So divide whatever you got from your neckline by 2, and then you're going to mark it like this. Okay, and then I added half-inch seam allowance to what I got. So you add half-inch seam allowance to it. Okay, so I'm just going to bring down the line like so. So the next I want to do is get the midpoint of the value I have there. Okay, so you're going to get the middle of what you have there. Okay, so I'm just going to fold my tape into 2 to get the middle, or you can just divide the value by 2 to get the midpoint. So I folded my tape into 2 to get the midpoint, and then I'm going to mark the midpoint. So I'm just going to connect the line like so. Okay, so I'm going to mark my width, the width of my collar. I'm going to mark 2 inches for the width of my collar, including the seam allowance. So when I join by a quarter of an inch on this top part and the down part, I'm going to have 1.5 inch left as my original collar width. So I'm going to come on this side. Okay, and I'm going to come up by half an inch, come up by half an inch on that side. Okay, so I'm going to connect it to that point that we marked. That's that midpoint that we got, remember. So I was connecting it to that half an inch I measured up, like this. So I'm just going to connect it all so you'll see. I hope you can see the line well. So I connected it like so. Okay, so I'm going to, yeah, I was just showing you the lines. I hope you can see it. Okay, so I'm going to continue marking my width. That's the width of my collar, which is 2 inches. Okay, so I'm going to start mark 2 inches here. Then on this side, I'm going to start marking my 2 inches from that line, the new line that we made. Okay, so I'm going to mark my 2 inches starting from that line all the way to the end like this. Okay, so I just extended my line up like this. So I'm going to connect those points, the 2 inches that I marked all the way. Okay, I'm going to connect the points like this. So I am done, and next thing is to cut it out. Okay, remember to follow the lines. Cut it out like so. Then I'll cut off that other area like so. Okay, I was done cutting, and what I want to do is I'm going to notch this area. Okay, this area I'm notching it so that I will know where to fix on my collar. Okay, this is the area I'm going to be fixing on my collar, so please notch it so that you don't make a mistake of fixing the wrong side to your collar. So this area that I notched is where I'm going to be fixed, that's going to be attached to my neck. Okay, then here is where I'm going to join by 1/4 of an inch, and then the side by 1/2 of an inch. Okay, so this is where I'm going to attach to my collar. Please notch it. Okay, so what I want to do is to iron. Okay, I'm going to just curve. This is the notched area. Okay, I was just showing you the notch. So next I want to do is to curve the side of my collar. Okay, you can choose not to do this. I just want to do it just for style. So I curved the collar, the tip of the collar like so, and I cut it off, just a slight curve. So I'm going to iron interfacing on this, and I already stitched it, stitch the side by 1/2 of an inch, and then the top part by 1/4 of an inch. Then I'm going to turn it over like so. Going to turn it over, and then I'm going to press it, make it lay flat. Okay, so here is what it looks like. I'm going to iron it. So next is to fix it on my neckline. So on my neck, at the back of my neck, on the back, I'm going to place my collar like so from one end. I'm going to open my collar like so, and then I'm going to stitch it on my neckline by 1/4 of an inch. So here I was stitching it by 1/4 of an inch to my neck, to the back of my neckline. Okay, so I was done stitching from this end, okay, to the other end by 1/4 of an inch. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is to flip it like so. Okay, to the right side, and then I'll fold in 1/4 of an inch. Okay, to cover my seam like so. I'm going to cover the seam, and then I'm going to stitch it on the edge. Okay, so as you sew, you're going to fold in 1/4 of an inch until you get to the other end. Okay, So you stitch it at the edge by a quarter of an inch. So here I was stitching it at the edge. Okay, so I was done sewing, and this is what the front looks like. Very neat. And here is the back. Okay, here is the back. It looks so neat and so nice. Yes, here is the front. See how neat it looks. So here is what it looks like. Looking so neat. Okay, so if I hadn't made this curve on my collar, I would have just fixed a button or a hook on this area. But because I made that curve, I'm just going to leave it like so. Okay, so I was done. I hemmed, and this is what I have. It's looking so nice. Please guys, if you enjoyed this tutorial, kindly like and subscribe to my channel, and please drop your comments. I would love to read from you. Thank you for watching till the end. Look at how it looks, so beautiful. And please, we can also connect on Instagram. Kindly follow me. Thank you.